You are tuned to Anubhav 2.0 podcast from senior citizens, catalyzed and supported by the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, Government of India, through National Institutes for Social Defense and Media for Community Foundation. The project is conceived and designed by Dr. R. Sridhar and supported by Ashish Tiwari, Pooja Murada, Sai Sudha and Kaushalya.
Today, Professor Shankar will share with us his views on ecology.
Namaskaram and hello to all of you. This is my third talk for Covaivani podcast. In my last talk, I mentioned I would talk about ecology later. I am going to do that now. Nature, as we know, consists of two parts, the living part and the non-living part, or the biotic and abiotic. All kinds of animals and plants, that is to say all organisms, are the living part, the biotic part. What makes up the non-living part? The abiotic part. Earth, air, water, fire, space, that is all the five elements, the weather, energy. In fact, all of abiotic features of environment make the abiotic part. This is the non-living physical environment inhabited by all organisms. In short, biotic organisms inhabit the abiotic environment. Now, what is ecology? Ecology is the study of nature in terms of ecological systems. An ecological system, or an ecosystem as it is commonly called, is a small functional unit of nature consisting of a biotic community and an abiotic environment. What is a community or a biotic community? A biotic community is a group of plant and animal populations. And how do you define population? An interbreeding group of organisms of the same species is called a population. We have now seen four hierarchical levels within the realm of ecology: organism, population, community, and ecosystem. The major terrestrial communities of the world of the same type are called biomes. Some examples of biomes are coniferous forest, temperate deciduous forest, grassland, desert, and rainforest. What comes after ecosystem? Ecosphere or biosphere is the highest level in ecology. It refers to the extent of Earth where all life exists. You may also visualize it as the ecosystem of all ecosystems on Earth, or continuum of all ecosystems. Within ecosystems, communities have certain characteristics that individuals and populations do not have. These include diversity, food webs, and species interactions. Now, what do we learn in ecology? In ecology, we study the interactions within ecosystems. Ecology is all about interactions and interrelationships between the living organisms and the non-living environment, or between the biotic community and the abiotic environment. The scope of ecology also includes interactions between different species of the community or between organisms of the same species. The patterns of interaction between organisms are an important dimension of ecology. Interaction is the means of self-regulation of biotic communities, and self-regulation of biotic communities is the essence of ecology. The two most basic types of relationships in any ecosystem are those having to do with energy flow and those having to do with chemical cycles. You remember, I mentioned earlier that everything in this universe is connected to everything else. Interconnectedness of the universe. Knowing ecology takes you to that realization. In biology, you study about both plant and animal organisms. Broadly, plant study is botany and animal study is zoology. In ecology, the organisms are classified into three groups, namely the producers, the consumers, and the decomposers. Producers are those organisms that produce food naturally through photosynthesis. Plants do this synthesis using water, carbon dioxide, and sunlight. Through this complex process, plants synthesize sugars or carbohydrate and generate oxygen. Photosynthesis can also be seen as a process of conversion of light energy into chemical energy, which is food, or as a process of conversion of inorganic compounds into organic compound, which is food. Through a series of other processes, plants also synthesize protein, fat, and other nutrients. Each plant is an amazing food factory. Each plant is a producer in the true sense. If plants are producers, then what are animals? Animals fall into the remaining two categories of organisms, consumers and decomposers. All animals, herbivorous, carnivorous, or omnivorous, they are all consumers. Animals consume plant food directly as herbivores or indirectly as carnivores, or both directly and indirectly as omnivores. Plants sustain all animal organisms. In any ecosystem, the organisms of the different species of the biotic community are connected through food chain and food web. The food chain refers to the sequence of transfer of matter and energy in the form of food from one organism to another. It starts with plant, the autotroph, the producer, and connected to the plant-eating herbivore at the next level. The herbivore in turn is eaten by the carnivore, which in turn is eaten by a carnivore of the next higher level, and so on. In reality, in any ecosystem, there are innumerable food chains which are interconnected to make a food web. Food chains and food webs are the integral part of an important ecological process known as biogeochemical cycle or chemical cycle or material cycle in short. The other important ecological process is energy transfer. Part of the solar energy is converted to chemical energy in photosynthesis. Further energy transfer occurs through food chains. About half of the chemical energy fixed by green plants is available to consumers. Plants use the rest of the energy themselves. On an average, about 10% of the energy entering a particular trophic level is available to the next level in an ecosystem. Now, let us consider the third category of organisms, the decomposers. They are microorganisms such as bacteria. Other small organisms like earthworms are also included in this category. Actually, they are also consumers. They consume in a different way. They break down the dead organisms and the organic waste and release the nutrients back to the environment. All elements are thus cycled or circulated within Earth. Nothing is lost. Imagine a world without these micro-decomposers. There would be mountains of dead organisms and organic waste. Categorizing organisms into producers, consumers, and decomposers actually refer to their work or function in an ecosystem or nature. As far as ecology is concerned, nature is concerned, each function is as important as the other two functions. There are about 94 naturally occurring chemical elements, but organisms are made up of only some of these, not in equal proportion either. If we take our human body, 4 elements, namely oxygen, hydrogen, carbon, and nitrogen, make about 96% of our body weight. These 4 elements are the building blocks of any organisms. Add calcium and phosphorus, and these 6 elements make 99% of human body. Add 5 more elements, namely sulfur, potassium, sodium, chlorine, and magnesium, and all these 5 elements make up about 85% of the remaining 1% of body mass. All added, these 11 elements make almost all of our body. Isn't it surprising that organisms such as a tree, an elephant, or a human being, which are so vastly different in size, look, abilities, and intelligence, are made up of the same elements? Towards the end, let me tell you something about an important natural process known as ecological succession. Ecological succession is a process by which the biotic community changes over time. Succession starts with a disturbance to the community or ecosystem, which is constantly moving towards a mature state, a state of equilibrium, or a state of balance. Today, most ecologists think that change rather than stability is more defining characteristic of ecosystems. Don't we also consider in our philosophy that nothing ever remains the same and change is eternal? Finally, when an adverse impact affects the organisms or biotic community, it is called an ecological impact. And when the adverse impact affects the abiotic physical environment, it is called the environmental impact. Till my next talk, bye, namaste, and vanakkam.
Thank you, Professor Shankar, for your very informative talk on all about ecology, ecosystems, ecological and environmental impact, food chains, food webs, etc. I'm sure our listeners must have gained a lot of knowledge from Professor Shankar's talk. On behalf of Covaivani, this is Revati Bhaskar signing off today till we meet again in another podcast.
You were listening to Covaivani podcasts from S3 Kovai Care, Coimbatore. Please contact 14567. I repeat, 14567 Elderline Helpline during working hours for any assistance relating to senior citizens. Thank you.